see Ian Harvey's died.
Oh.
He was younger than me. I hadn't seen him for a while. A bit late now.
Just scrolling through Castlemaine here, and it says that Angela Booth has died aged 93.
Oh. Okay.
If I wasn't scrolling through Facebook, how else would we know if someone's died in our community?
That's a big question, Beryl, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I like reading the death notices, you know. I find them quite fascinating. There's one here. I didn't know, but, you know, Marie Valenti. She was much loved and admired. Marie was a steadfast, dedicated, whip-smart, blunt,
Oh, I like that.
open-hearted mother, grandmother, sister, daughter, mother-in-law, dancing partner, comrade and friend, to a big life and a blessedly easy death. Oh,
Good girl, that sounds great.
That's it. You know, Facebook has become the community newsletter, hasn't it? I mean, I've found out recently people like Broderick Smith and Mick Ahern, people I knew, not closely, but I found out, even yesterday, I did find out on Facebook that my sister-in-law's mother died in New Zealand yesterday.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. When my brother died, I got a text telling me that he died. I mean, he'd been sick for a long time,
Yeah.
and he was expected to die, but, you know, I read it on a text. Yeah.
A text.
Yeah. Well, it was midnight. You know.
But it's a bit different when famous people die, isn't it? Like it's plastered across the internet. They've probably just taken their last breath and you hear that they've died. Or television.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember, I'm that old, I can remember watching television when I heard the news that JFK had died.
Yeah.
And for those of us that are old enough to remember, when, I'm sure we know, all of us know where we were when John Lennon died.
Yes.
Oh, we forgot to do that, didn't
Yeah,
we?
that's time's running out. Yeah.
Oh, already? Oh,
You don't want to forget that.
no.
And I remember so clearly when Princess Di died. Yeah, I was at the footy in Melbourne with my brother. I know it was his birthday, August the 31st, 1997. And half-time, an announcement came over the loudspeaker that Princess Di had been killed in a car crash. Oh, wow, you could just hear this sort of palpable. And then the whole ground went quiet. Yeah, it was really sad.
Yeah.
Except that Essendon won, but yeah. Not so sad.
Well, I think there was a whole atmosphere around the globe. It was like global mourning was taking place.
Yeah, that was a really big death.
It
Yeah.
was.
And back in the day, when we only had a landline,
Oh yeah, on that old.
Yeah. I remember 3 o'clock in the morning, the phone ringing, and
Never good news in the middle of the night when the phone rings.
no, not usually, no. And it was someone telling me my soulmate, my best friend,
Oh.
Bobby, had died.
Oh.
3 o'clock in the morning, so I was just this crying mess.
Oh.
He was only 60. So I picked up my guitar. I didn't actually think I was going to write a song. I thought, oh, I'll sit down and write a song for Bobby. I just picked up my guitar and I thought, I'll just sing to him. Because we used to sing a lot together. And I just sang this. There you go,
there you go now.
there you went
And
you've gone. There you go, there you go now. One last breath and you've gone. Where'd you go? Where'd you go to escape from your pain? I'll find out in my own time, 'cause I'm coming one day. Yes, I said that I was coming for a smoke and a song, for the hugs and the laughter. I can't believe that you've gone. You took the fast track to heaven with a smile on your face, but there's a part of you living all over the place.
There you go now.
There you went
And you've gone.
there you go now. One last breath and you've gone. Where'd you go to escape from your pain? I'll find out in my Bach and Mozart, the Messiah in the bath, kill a frisbee on the front lawn. Life was a laugh. You watched me fall in love with Christine, and you smiled as if to know that this was something special in our human ebb and flow. So there you go now, there you went and you've gone. There you go now, one last breath and you've gone. Where'd you go to escape from the pain? We'll find out in our own time, 'cause we're coming one day. Wardrobe this time. Yeah, there you go. It was great. After I wrote that song, I kept going into shops and people would serve it and go, there you go. For the next couple of weeks I just kept hearing it go, my antenna was up, of course, and probably they still say it, but for the next few weeks after that, I just kept hearing it. There you go. It was this affirmation from my friend Bobby.
There you go, and it says here that Angela Booth died suddenly at 93. How can you die suddenly at 93?
Well, you know, I was with my dad when he took his last breath. I was holding his hand, and he was breathing, and then suddenly he wasn't. So, like, maybe all death is sudden. You're breathing, and then you're not. Isn't that sudden?
I'm not so sure. I mean, the average life expectancy of blokes in this country is 81, and us women, we have a couple of years up our sleeves, about 85. And so, if you're in your 90s, where's the kind of surprise that you get? I mean, you're sort of on borrowed time, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it says here, I was reading about Ian Harvey. Need those to read about Ian Harvey. It says he died peacefully after a long battle.
Wait.
You reckon you can die peacefully and suddenly at the same time?
Yeah. Peacefully after a long battle.
Yeah.
So, this old hippie thinks that battle means war, fighting. Who's he fighting? What's he fighting? And where's the space for peace? Because if you're fighting and you're fearful, well, your heart clamps up, and where's the love? I'm not so sure about battle, because why would you want to fight this beautiful temple that we've all been given? Fight the inevitable.
Yeah,
What
that's
else?
interesting, yeah. Because a friend sent me this post
Yeah.
from a woman called Kerry Grote,
Mhm.
and she says much the same as you were just saying.
Okay.
I didn't know Kerry Grote, but a friend sent me this. It says, if you're reading this cancer probably got me. But let me be crystal clear why I'm unable. I did not lose a battle against cancer. This is a ridiculous steamy pile of horseshit the society has dumped on cancer patients. Western medicine and Western culture especially is so uncomfortable talking about death that instead it created this battle analogy that basically shames people that die from cancer. Newsflash, none of us get out alive from this rodeo called life. There is no shame in dying from cancer or any serious illness, and it doesn't need to be a battle. That's Kerry Grote, she thought that. But I don't know, I think everyone's different, aren't they?
They are. Everybody is
Because
different.
my dad, he was a fighter, he was a boxer, champion boxer, and he liked a battle. And we were living overseas at the time, and I got a phone call from my mum saying, your dad's got 6 weeks to live, he's got lung cancer, he's got one lung taken out, and the other one's getting radiation, so he's got 6 weeks. If you want to see him, you better come and visit. I go, oh, okay. And he really wants to see his little 1-year-old grandson live on it, that'd be great. Okay, so we got ourselves together, and we made our way to Melbourne. That journey is another show for another Fringe Festival. And yeah, we got there and he had 6 weeks to live, lost his lung, he was pretty crook. And he recovered from that, and then he got bladder cancer. Oh. He had his bladder out, so he had a colostomy bag, and that was a struggle. And then he recovered from that, it was a battle, he fought. And then he got bowel cancer, and he had most of his bowel out, so he had another bag, so he had 2 ostomy bags. My mum was an angel looking after him, nursing him. And then he got bone cancer. Yeah.
The trifecta.
He just battled. Yeah, it was a battle. And he had 6 weeks to live. And he lived for 9 years. Just don't know when we're going to die, do we? We're told 6 weeks, get 9 years. It was a battle.
Oh, we don't know when we're going to die. That's quite a story, George. But you and I have had a few close calls, haven't we?
Close calls, yeah, I had close calls. Childhood asthma, ambulances, hospital, car accidents, motorbike accidents, having a gun pointed at my head, hitchhiking in Kenya. I thought that was
That would
it.
do it?
Yeah, that was. I thought I was going to die those times. Yeah, close calls.
Yeah. Well, I had a bit of a tricky heart in my 40s, and a social worker said to me, "Oh, you've been tickled by an angel's feather."
Nice.
However,
Yeah.
I think our experiences have done something to us to kind of see life a little bit differently. I think we realise how precious life is, and we go, yeah, let's get on with it. Let's do things. Let's embrace life to the fullest. And maybe even take some risks.
Yeah. That's why we're here tonight. We took risks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, how we met was taking a risk. We both answered an ad for a couple in their 70s
That's us.
who like to dance.
That's us.
And so it was for a local a music video being shot in Castlemaine.
Yep.
And rather than me tell you all about it, let me show you a little bit. Push the right button. Please send it to work.
Yep. We were
This is
famous
how
in our lunch.
Beryl and I met.
Yep.
You might recognise the venue, perhaps.
Oh, the red button.
It's going to work. No, it's going to work. There it is.
I shouldn't fall, but I do. Hey you!
Yeah, that was great.
Wow, that was really the genesis of Beryl and George, because when I met Tim before we started shooting, I said, look, we need a backstory, and so that's how Beryl and George came to be. I call him George more times than I call him Tim. And, yeah. And we got on like a house on fire, and we're both performers, and we were so buoyed by what we did, and it was so funny when we were shooting the video. People who didn't know either of us thought we were this really old married couple been together forever. And I went, oh no, I only met him 3 days ago. Anyway, yeah, we thought, let's do something else.
Yeah, let's do like stand up. We could do comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, stand up like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So what could we do? We could talk about important stuff like from our past because we're so old, like conscription,
Yeah, or prescriptions and the pill.
Vietnam,
Moratorium.
golf. Hawk.
Ooh.
Elections.
Erections. Well, that might be something in the past. Maybe we should do something a little bit more contemporary, relevant to our lives. Like medical appointments?
Yeah, please.
Chiro,
Yeah, physio,
osteo,
psychos,
runnings,
or hip replacements,
naps,
nappies,
medications,
meditations,
aging.
aging.
Aging. We've got 150 years between us, George. Surely we can think of something.
Aging.
Aging.
What comes after aging, Bill?
Death. Death.
Hey, let's do a show about death. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Oh,
Yeah,
that'll wow them in the eyes, won't it?
Anybody here do Wordle? Yeah. I recommend tomorrow morning use death as your first word. It's great. Yeah. 2 vowels, can't go wrong. We've got lots of hints for Wordle for you in the show. Death's the first one, but you'll hear a few more.
Yeah.
Death. Great.
Yeah.
We're going to do a show about death. Really?
Well, life's too short.
And our mums are dead.
And this is not the rehearsal. This is the performance.
That's why they came. This is a show. That's right.
Show of hands.
A show of hands. Let's have a show of hands. Who's dying to see the show?
Dying.
No,
That's
why don't
another
listen?
word.
Dying, you're 5 minutes.
That's what I hear.
I'm not very impressed with that response, Deborah. I mean, why do they bother coming? Who's dying to see the show?
Okay, so who's made a will?
Who's getting buried?
Who's getting cremated?
Who hasn't made up their mind yet?
Oh my goodness, there's so many liberals in the audience. How to make up their mind.
Get your act together, you just don't know.
But George,
Yeah.
a show needs music, because we did say it on the ad, there will be music.
Oh, the music and juggling, of course.
Yeah. Music by the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, that'd be good. The Living End.
Nirvana.
Yeah. Or the original death music, death metal. There was a band called Death. Yeah. Started by, just see if I can find a bit for you. It's fascinating stuff. It was it was started by a guy called Chuck Schuldiner, and this is their big hit. It's called Spirit Crusher. I'll just play a little bit. You might recognise it. Spirit Crusher, yeah. Chuck Schuldiner, yeah. And Chuck was really busy boy. Like, he started this band called Death, and then had a lot of offshoots. I'll just read you some of the other bands that he was in, and some of the other band members left. They started bands called Morbid Angel, Suffocation, Obituary, Napalm Death, Carcass, Autopsy, Massacre. Yeah, sort of light-hearted stuff.
Well, it sort of makes it cheery for you.
Yeah. But, of course, the sad thing is, he died of cancer when he was 33. Chuck Schuldiner.
Yeah. So, George, do
Sad.
you think he had a bit of a death wish?
Well, I don't know, but he died.
Yeah, I guess it just highlights we really don't know when we're going to die. And there's a Buddhist tradition that before you go to bed at night, you invert your cup as a sign of impermanence. I may not be here in the morning. However, if you wake up and you open your cup again, wow, I'm alive, I'm here, I'm breathing, I can feel, I can see. Wow, I'm full of so much gratitude. I wonder what is one simple little thing I can do to make somebody's life better today. It's a lovely little practice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
Buddhists, they're a bit like the Boy Scouts, aren't they?
I
Remember the
thought
Boy
of it that
Scouts?
way.
Be prepared.
I think our mums were prepared.
They certainly were, my mums. I think they had their affairs in order.
Oh, for sure. What affairs are you talking about?
Not that, yeah, they had the, it's the saying, Beryl.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes.
Are you going to deliver us a sermon?
Well, I just thought this is a good spot to talk about my mum.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My mum, Margaret, she had her affairs in order. She was prepared. She'd made a list of the hymns that she wanted for her funeral. She had a prepaid funeral. She paid for it. She had a list of the readings she wanted from the Bible. She had the clothes that she wanted to wear. And she was quite resigned in a way. She was only 72 and she said, oh, you know, I'm tired. I'm ready to go. I looked after your dad for 9 years and you know, I'm happy to go anytime. And then she had a brain aneurysm one day. And they found her on the floor and she spent a week in the Austin hospital in this really weird state of mind. Just difficult to explain how she was. She was alert at one level and she was brain damaged on another level. So she could do cryptic crosswords so clearly and so quickly. And then of course we could do the same crossword tomorrow. It didn't matter, it's great. And she could sing every song that we knew. She sang all the words from South Pacific, My Fair Lady, Oklahoma. She knew everything. But then she'd ask me, have you cleaned your shoes for school tomorrow? Okay, I don't. Have you packed your lunch? What am I doing here? I said, you've had a brain hemorrhage, Mum. Oh, I want to go home. Look, you can't go home, no. And they thought that they might be able to operate. They said, look, we've looked at her scans and there's a possibility we can go in and we can pack that little bubble that she's got, the aneurysm. And they came and they told her that they were thinking of that. She said, no, I don't want any intervention. I don't want anything to happen. No brain surgery. They said, well, the surgeon knows best. And she said, no. And then the next day I was with her and the anaesthetist came in and he stood next to her and he said, well, Margaret, we decided that we're going to operate this afternoon, you know. And she said, no, I don't want that to happen. I said, well, you know, we made that decision. They, obviously, it was a long time ago. And then just his pager went off. And he said, oh, excuse me, and he went to the other side of the room and he came back and said, oh, surgeons had a closer look at your scans and yes, we decided not to operate. She said, yes, I told you so. And then she, after about a week of that sort of time in the hospital, which had a bit of laughter and fun in it, but sadness, she had a second bleed and then she was in a coma. And she was totally unresponsive. I couldn't get any response. I couldn't squeeze her hand. There was no response whatsoever. She was lying. And I just remember one day, the day that she died in the morning, I was sitting and I was singing. I think I was singing Danny Boy next to her. And I saw a tear roll down her cheek from her eye. And then I read later that hearing is the last sense that you lose before you die. So well, I think, yeah, she had a good death.
Yeah. Thank you, George.
What
That
about
was
your mum,
absolutely
Beryl?
beautiful. Oh, well, if you're going to stand up there, I can too.
Yes, anything you can do, I can do.
So my mum, I don't know if you'd call it a luxury peg, her name was. She knew she was dying. She only had a couple of months to live and she knew this. And what was astonishing about her is that she was full of so much gratitude for the life that she had. She said that, you know, she'd been married to my dad for nearly 60 years, didn't quite make that. She'd had 4 wonderful children. Thanks, Mum. She'd had lots of overseas trips. And being the absolute consummate Leo hostess, that's where I learnt to love anchovies, was Mum's cocktail parties. She had her funeral really well organised. So she organised the flowers that she wanted. She organised, like Tim's mum, the hymn sheet. She organised, she decided what beautiful outfit she was going to wear. And she said to me, because she knew I was going to say a few words about her, and she said, don't be maudlin, because she's a bit bossy. And so I thought about that. I thought, what am I going to say? So I thought it best to recant the story of a couple of months before she died, she came up to me, she's 85, mind you, right? And she's saying, oh, I'm a little bit tired these days. Do you think I really need to iron your father's underpants still? And I said, no, I think you can let that one go. But what was amazing about Mum was right up to the end, she, as I mentioned before, she was full of such gratitude for the life she had. And I remember talking to her on a Christmas day, and she said, oh, everyone's being so kind to me. And I said, Mum, this is your harvest. Look at the life you've done in giving and service. And she died 2 days after. I think she held on deliberately after Christmas. But what was such a privilege sitting with my mum in that period was recognising how inspirational she was in her approach to dying. She was accepting of it. No moaning, no tears, no whinging about pain or anything. And that really inspired me to become a respite carer for terminally ill people. And I know I could not have done that without the experience of my darling mum, Peg. And I also want to thank her for the bling. I don't wear this very often, but it's pink stuff. So, thank you.
Our mums
Yeah, to Peg
and Mark.
and Marg.
Good on you. Thanks, Mum.
It's just water. Yeah, thanks, Mum. You know, I don't think our mums had too many regrets, did they?
No. Regrets. This is a book by Bronnie Ware. It's called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. It's a great read. Bronnie Ware was a palliative care worker, worked with people in their last days, weeks, and she's written a book called The Top 5 Regrets. This is what she's found. So I'll read them to you in case you need to make a few notes. Regret number 1. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life expected of me by others. Good. Some people recognise that. It's brilliant. I wish I hadn't worked so hard.
Yeah, you're not going to get to your deathbed and go, oh, I should have done all that overtime.
Yeah, Regret number 3. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. That one resonated with me, being a bloke born in the 40s. I thought, oh yeah, express my feelings, because I just thought feelings was like happy, sad and angry. You know? That's about it. That's all I needed to. But then about 15 years ago, we discovered a practice called non-violent communication, which was brought to Castlemaine by Sonia. And part of the non-violent communication had lists of feelings and needs. And we had this list of feelings on our fridge for a while, you know. And I'd walk past and I'd read it. I go, wow, they're all feelings. That's amazing. Today I'm feeling really equanimous.
Did you repeat that?
Yeah. Oh, yesterday, I felt quite fervent. But it was really helpful in being able to identify, you know, one side is what it was called. Feelings likely to occur when our needs are being met, and the other side is feelings likely to occur when our needs are not being met. So it really helped me get in touch, just putting feelings and names to them and not blaming other people for my feelings. I guess that was a really big help in my relationship with Christine, you know, was knowing that when I felt repugnance, it wasn't about her, it was about myself. There's a lot of, if you want a copy, there's a couple up the front if you want to grab one. It's non-violent communication. I recommend it.
So that's number 3, isn't it? So we're up to number 4, and number 4 says, I wished I'd stayed in contact with my friends, and thank you all my lovely friends that are here tonight.
They're all here.
Friends, yeah. And by contact, I don't mean this or this. I mean this. And the next regret was wish I'd let myself be happier. And one of Bronnie's clients is a woman called Rosemary. So I'll just read you a little excerpt from this. I might sit down for this one. Sorry, I've got glasses. Rosemary wanted to be happy. She told me later that day, but didn't know how. Well, just pretend to be for half an hour. Maybe you'll enjoy it enough to actually be happy. Just the physical act of smiling can change your emotions. Rosemary, I dare you not to frown, complain, or say anything negative for half an hour. Instead, say nice stuff. Focus on the garden if you must, but remember to smile. I also reminded Rosemary that I didn't know her in the past, which allowed her to be whoever she wanted to be right now.
Yeah, beautiful. Smile, that's a really happy wordle than death. Like if you want to use smile tomorrow morning for your wordle, I'd go for that one rather than death. But they both work quite well. Yeah. Which reminds me of a poem you might have heard by Spike Milligan, that Irish comedian. He wrote a poem called Smile, which is, smiling is contagious. You catch it like the flu.
When someone smiled at me today, I started smiling too.
I passed around the corner and someone saw my grin.
A single smile like mine, I passed it on to them.
And when I thought about that smile, I realised its worth.
A single smile just like mine could travel round the earth.
So if you feel a smile begin, don't leave it undetected.
Let's start an epidemic quick and get the world infected.
You can start that epidemic right now. couldn't
Yes,
you, Beryl?
let's do it.
So what I'd like you to do is turn to someone and just smile. Let's have a beautiful, someone you know, someone you don't oh, that's enough smile.
This is serious.
I think they're actually chatting. Chatting kind of word. Spike Milligan requested that when he died, he wanted on his gravestone, I told you I was ill. But in fact, the Cemetery Trust in England, where he was buried, Winchelsea, I think, they thought that was disrespectful and not quite irreverent enough for a cemetery. So his family had it translated into Gaelic. So he said on his tombstone is in Gaelic, I told you I was ill. What a funny man. There's another funny man I really like. It's called Charlie Chaplin.
Oh yeah, he's made me smile over the years.
Yes.
I'm sure I love
And
lots
he-
of other people too.
He wrote the music for this song. He didn't write the words, but he wrote this beautiful tune. And I'm sure some of you might know it. And so please join us if you do know it. It goes like this. Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by if you smile through your tears and sorrow. Smile and maybe tomorrow you'll find the sun come shining through. For you light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you, George.
You know what it's time for now, Beryl?
I think it's...
Juggling time! Charlene's juggling. There it is. Look, it's one of the 7 wonders of the world, isn't it? How you can keep 3 objects up in the air with only 2 hands. Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought about it and I thought, yeah, we need juggling. All shows need juggling. My show.
Of course, it's
make it? I need to make it relevant to, you know, the show about death. And then I had an idea. Where do ideas come from? It's just amazing, isn't it?
Shower?
It just came out. Yeah, it was, maybe I don't think it was in the shower, but I had an idea that I could make some juggling balls, because I made hundreds of juggling balls, balloons and birdseed. You make balls for workshops and teaching juggling. But I could make them and include my parents and my brother's ashes. Most amazing thought. But I thought, fuck yeah! And then I thought, oh, really? You know, I wavered a little. But then I had a conversation with my mum and my dad and Graham, my brother. I had, you know, I asked them, they said, okay. And they said, yeah, sounds like fun, go for it. Yeah. And then I thought, okay. So I made this beautiful, sacred little space with a beautiful cloth and candles and incense. I had photos of them sitting there, had family memorabilia, had their ashes ready to go, and some birdseed and balloons. And I made them on my birthday, so it was an extra special day. And I also had a cassette tape of them talking. So I had my mother and my dad and my brother. They made a cassette tape in 1972, which they sent to me in Zambia. So I had all their voices playing on a cassette. It was, I think you call it total immersion. Yeah.
And reverend.
Very reverent. Yeah. So this is this is my mum. This is not my mum. This is a juggling ball. Some of my mum is in there because she was a real fan of the Virgin Mary. So I thought, you know, blue and white, excellent. And this is my dad. He was a fighter. He was an angry man. He used to, you know, get into trouble sometimes for losing his temper. So I made him red, but he was also a really good gardener, so there's a little bit of green in the background. And this is my brother, Graham. He was a greenie, he was a great gardener, and he was also a little bit angry in the background, so he's got a little bit So they're all complementary, and they go around like this. This is my family. The family that juggles together snuggles together. Right? Sometimes we struggle together, sometimes we snuggle, but the family that juggles together. So initially there was just my mum and dad, yeah. All by themselves, just mum and dad side by side. Sometimes they go round in circles. Yeah. And then I came along, and then there was three of us. And then after a while, my brother came along. I thought, I was a bit jealous because he used to climb into bed and get in the middle. Oh, there he is, in the middle. Yeah. Where is he? Oh, there. Sorry, Mum. So, my dad, well, as I said, he was a little bit angry. Sometimes he was a little bit over the top. Whoa! Sometimes he'd get really angry and hit the roof. I do commissions, if you've got any ashes at home. I know friends have told me that they've got, you know, they've got relatives sitting on the mantelpiece. What do you do with them? They didn't leave any instructions, so it does come with a free juggling lesson.
That's an interesting way to use your ashes. We'll just show something a little bit different if you start pressing play. Okay. So last month one of my dear friends died, and she had a very strong interest in aviation. She got a pilot's license, and her wish was for her ashes to be tipped from the plane into the ocean. And so that's going to happen. Probably can't see the ashes. Unless you've got really good eyesight, which I don't have. But it was absolutely lovely. She was married to a couple of pilots, not at the same time. But this was her wish to have this happen. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to look much longer. Yeah. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. You can John. Wow. The morning of this event, it was rainy, it was stormy, and we thought there's no way that we're going to get a plane in the sky. And then all of a sudden, the sky parted, the sun came out, and the plane came round. And I have to say, I think there was a little bit of divine interference going on there. You get my drift. Yeah. And also discovered paperweight. So there's many ways that your ashes can be dealt with.
And you're getting cremated, Beryl? Yep.
Yeah, I'm going up in smoke, George.
What are you going to do with your ashes?
So, because I'm a Buddhist, I'm going to be in a stupa. Now, you might all know the name stupa from the big stupa at Bendigo. Stupa just means a Buddhist monument. So they can be all different sizes. And in fact, there are stupas outside the great stupa of people's ashes. But I wanted to make sure that my kids didn't have any wondering that what they were going to do with me after I died. You know, put me into an egg timer and say, oh, she's late again. So I've got my stupa, I've paid for it, I've got my little place where it's going to be at a Buddhist place in Queensland. The Dalai Lama's blessed the area. So, yeah, what about you, George? What are you doing?
I'm going underground.
What, joining a cult?
Yes. No, I've got a plot in Taradale Cemetery. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. In the arts corner. It's
oh, that's very appropriate.
There's like Barry Tuckwell, the most famous French horn player, and Jonathan Taylor, a world famous ballet dancer. So we've got a plot next to them. So yeah, jumping plot. That'd be great. Yes, and then I saw that program on SBS. You may have seen it by Ray Martin. It was called The Last Goodbye, and I noticed in there he talked about 80% of Australians are cremated because burial is more expensive. And I go, oh, I wonder how much more expensive. So, went to visit Natural Grace in Woodend and came to see Peter Thompson here. And I'm really glad I don't live in Melbourne because a plot in the Melbourne Cemetery in Lygon Street starts at $16,000, goes up to $35,000.
That's a lot of dead money, George.
It's a big hole. Just a little hole in the ground, yeah.
Whoa.
And at Faulkner Cemetery, a little bit to the north, it's still $4,000 for a hole in the ground for your burial hole. Luckily around here, Taradale and local cemeteries, it's about $500. So that's a bit more reasonable.
That is a
going
bit.
underground. Yeah.
That's a bit more reasonable. And I also saw the Ray Martin show, which is actually being repeated right now on SBS. You can look at it on demand. But what I really liked was one woman who made the line saying something like, you can't get pregnant talking about sex, and you can't die talking about death.
Yeah, I remember that line.
Yeah.
Because we don't like to talk about it, basically, now.
No.
And a funeral director told me the story of a couple in their 90s, still living at home. Husband had died, and the funeral director came to the house to make arrangements, and first question obviously is, so is it burial or cremation? And the woman said, oh, I don't know, we never like to talk about it. So it's not a topic that people like to talk about.
Apparently not, because Peter Thompson echoed similar words. People think death's morbid. Look, we are all here going to die.
Yeah,
So,
it's very astute of you, Beryl. Really on the money. Yeah, but there's still a lot of fear around death. You know, the fear of death, for me, growing up a Catholic boy, the fear of death was profound. It was associated with burning in hell. That was the big thing. And the worst thing was the cruelty of associating the pleasure of masturbation with eternal damnation. That was just brutal cruelty. But I think now, in mid-70s, it's time to get a little bit more prepared. So I've started to do the advanced care plan and the medical power of attorney and all the other practical things like that, and to consult funeral directors about, okay, what do I actually want? The music for my funeral, what this or that. And one exciting thing was coming here. Peter Thompson showed us shroud. I think I'm going to get buried in a shroud, because if it was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me. Look at that.
you can choose your own material.
Yeah, you can get your own material from Spotlight.
We don't get a cut to the spotlight.
You can write on it, draw on it.
Yep.
And yeah, shroud, shallow burial. So I've been investigating all the possibilities for what happens afterwards to make it easier, as you said, for the children and the people behind to decide what's going to go on with the shroud. There's a lot of more death literacy now. Like there's Hayley West has a radio show
Monday mornings on Main FM called Dead Air, and there's Remembrance Raid happening in the Fringe, and so there's a lot more conversation, deaf cafes, a lot more deaf literacy. But, you know, even so, it's still quite hard. And I am getting my act together. I'm doing Swedish death cleaning. Yeah,
Oh, you sound like Marie Kondo for the dying.
yeah, you pick up stuff and say, does that bring me joy? I've actually sold a trombone and a saxophone recently. Yeah, that's called Swedish death cleaning, getting rid of stuff that I didn't need. Yeah. And this little book is a great help. This is a little book that our daughter Grace gave me. It's called Life and Beyond, Instructions for My Family. So in here is all, well, what's in there?
Oh,
Well,
okay.
give us some of the topics that you can get in this little book.
Okay, so things like relations and friends to be notified, historical information, funeral service preferences.
Oh, that's a big one. Funeral service. You know, I've got friends
Yeah.
whose parents a bit my age, older, and they don't want a funeral. Some people don't want a funeral, don't want anything, no memorial, no celebration, just get rid of me, that's it.
And I discovered also that the local library has deaf literacy workshops, so that if you keep, very helpful if you want to put all your digital platforms that you're on and the passwords, whether you want them to continue after you die. There's actually a course that you can do. You can appoint a digital executive to the board as well as set it up. I mean, hello, it's 2025.
We find these are really useful, so we're going to give a couple away tonight, and my favourite number is 3, so I've decided I'm going to give it to the third person in the third row, which happens to be that person there.
Well, I like to lean to the left always. And my number's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. Thank you.
So, enjoy. Good luck with them. They're easily available. You want to order them? It's called Life and Beyond. Cool. Some Life and Beyond. Yep.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of help. Information here makes it a lot easier for everybody left behind, but there's no getting away from that vast grief that you feel when someone near you dies. It's just, grief is, it's another word, isn't it? Grief. There you go.
It is. And I'm sure all of us here tonight have been touched in some way with grief and loss. But you know what gets up my nose is when people say, oh, they should be over this by now. Well, they should be over this relationship. We're not pole vaulting in the Olympics. We're going through a sacred process. It's got its own time. It's as unique as our fingerprints. We can't make comments about other people's process that they go through. So we honour what is happening for the people. And it was really interesting that both Tim and I, our mums died 24 years ago. They died in the same year. And of course this brought up, there were tears for us. So it's not something that just goes away and that you're done with. It's more how you integrate it into your life. And someone once said to me, when you love somebody, they're always in your heart, no matter where they are. So, yeah.
Grief.
I'll sit down again.
Yeah. I'll stand.
And of course there's different types of grief. Oh, sorry.
There are different types of grief. This is a great book called The 5 Invitations, Discovering What Death Can Teach Us About Living Fully. It has a great little passage about grief that I'll read for you. More often, we think of grief as an overwhelming response to a singular event, usually the death of someone we love. Yet when we look more closely, we see that grief has been our companion for a good part of our lives. Clyde was talking about everyday grief, the response to multiple losses and little deaths that occur almost daily. The loss of a treasured piece of jewellery, being let go from a job, the abrupt breakup of a relationship, financial crises, kids going off to school, the loss of our vitality or a physical or mental capacity, the loss of control, the loss of our dreams. Everyday grief arises when we remember how the carelessness of our actions has caused harm to others. It comes in moments of not being recognised, at times when our expectations aren't met. Sometimes our grief is about what we've had and lost, and sometimes it's about what we never got to have in the first place.
Oh, how true that is, George. I can remember in a breakdown of a serious relationship I had, my therapist said to me, did you write down on a piece of paper all the things that you'd hoped that you were going to do, things that were planned, wishes, etc. And I found that just writing it down gave it form, so it wasn't staying within me, it was out there, and I didn't have to keep saying, oh, I wish this and I wish that. And I'm sure some of you saw Geraldine Brooks when she came to Castlemaine and talked about her latest book called Memorial Days, where she writes about the death of her husband. And she echoed very similar things, so there's something to it. Yeah. And in fact, that's one aspect of the dying, but the other thing is, what happens when we die? Do we know? And
Well, I'm going to tell you about Richard E. Grant first. Yeah,
oh,
about the grief. Yeah.
are you okay?
Before you say that, I'm going to tell you, because
Yeah.
English actor Richard E. Grant wrote a book called A Pocket Full of Happiness. And he's been interviewed many times. He came out to Australia. I'll just play a little bit of him talking about a pocket full of happiness. Oh, yeah.
Thing to my daughter and I 4 days before she died. She said, I know that you're going to be sad, but I challenge you both to find a pocketful of happiness in each day. And it's really become the mantra by which we have navigated on a daily basis the abyss of grief that you have to deal with. And the hidden beauty of this very simple phrase is that it absolves you from guilt when you do feel joy or happiness in a moment, but not feeling that, oh my God, how can I possibly be enjoying myself when my wife has died? So it was a profound thing, as simple as it sounds, to have said to both of us.
Yeah.
What an absolutely beautiful, kind, thoughtful gesture that Richard's wife gave him and his daughter as she's dying.
Yeah, pocket full of happiness. So grief is for those left behind, but what about when it's our time, it's our turn to die? We don't know how, or when, or where. As for where, most people express a desire to die at home, but in fact, most people die in an institution, hospital, or aged care, or hospice. And this is, again, Richard E. Grant talking about his wife Joan and her desires.
This was whatever happens, I do not want to die in pain. If you can try and maneuver that, and I would like to die in bed, at home, not in a hospital or in a hospice, with you by my side. So I said, well, I will make that promise, but you know, like a pie crust, I don't know whether I can hold to that because of whatever comes down the line. And it turned out that is what we managed to do. She did die in our bed, and I was holding her hand right until her last breath and talking to her.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that echoes sentiments probably that we all feel, that we want to die in familiar surroundings, with our loved ones around us, in comfort and in dignity. So that's one aspect of dying, but what about the actual act of dying? We don't know what happens when we die. And some of you might know Claire Babbage, the musician and performer. She's written this book about her journey with her sister Rowena, and it's called Your Kind of Girl. And I just want to read you a little bit that's absolutely beautiful. One Saturday morning in September, 2 years after Rowena had first moved into the hospital, there was an accident with her life support machine. Rowena suffered a heart attack and had what is perhaps best explained as a near-death experience. The nurses brought her back to life, thumping her chest in a special way. Mum says that over the following days, she asked Rowie a couple of times about what she had seen. But Rowie must have grown tired of the questions because the final time she asked, Rowie answered quite firmly in between the pumping of the respirator, saying, "Mum, stop asking me questions. It's too beautiful to talk about." Then she paused in between breaths and said, "But I want to go there." And that was that. Mum never asked about it again.
Yeah, it reminds me of the times that I've heard, the stories that I've heard of people that have had near-death experiences of being clinically dead for up to half an hour. And the common theme that happens when they're revived and they get a second chance is that they express their desire to spend their lives in a compassionate, kind, and a useful way to humanity. It's a common thread between people who have had a second chance of life.
Yeah, that reminds me, some of you might listen to Richard Feidel's Conversations. And on New Year's Day, he repeated a conversation with Jill Hicks. She was the Australian woman living in London who was 2 people away from the bomber that went off in the underground in London in 2007. This was recorded in 2012. And she literally died a number of times the day the bomb went off. But in that time, she recognised that her life was going to be different and she was going to be doing something different. So what she did was set up an organisation called Mad About Peace, Make a Difference About Peace. This is a global organisation where nests of communities work with each other to maybe recognise how can we actually have a more peaceful society in a community. So, and you hear lots of other stories. I really encourage you to listen to it. You can listen to it on ABC Listen because there's a whole lot more information about her experience with death.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
So you're a Buddhist, Beryl. Tell us Buddhism 101 about getting ready for the big event.
Oh, wow. Oh, pressure. Well, I think first off I'd like to say that Buddhism's not a religion. It's actually a method of training your mind through the teachings of the Buddha. And one of the main threads running through the teachings is the concept of impermanence, that nothing is permanent. And so for me that's given a very easy acceptance of the fact that I'm going to die, my loved ones are going to die. And that really changes the way that you live in terms of, well, as my responsibilities of a human being, how am I going to use my body, speech and mind to practice loving kindness to people? Because if you want to pare Buddhism down into one sentence, it's loving kindness to all sentient beings.
Yeah, beautiful. That reminds me a little bit, we've got this great 3 CD set by Buddhist nun Pema Chodron. It's called Embracing the Unknown. So it's 3 hours of telling you about welcoming the unwelcome, as she calls it. This is, condensed it down to 30 seconds. It goes like this.
This is one thing that I think might really help us to overcome our fear of death, is to overcome our fear of recognizing that right now is impermanent and get used to it. You see, get used to it. Get familiar with the impermanent process, the beauty of that, the frightening part of that. Just get used to it right now while we're in the natural bardo of this life, and before we enter the bardo of dying.
Gotta get used to it. Yeah.
Yep.
Reminds me of that quote from Leonardo da Vinci. He said, "Just as a well-filled day leads to a blessed sleep, so a well-employed life leads to a blessed death.
A well-employed life. I don't think that means 40 years in the one job that you sit the payout at the end, does it?
Well, I think it's nearly time for us to say goodbye, but Beryl's going to lead us in a short...
I'm going to talk about Lamiashi first.
Oh yeah, talk about him first.
One of them.
Yeah. One of them.
Lamiashi and Lama Zopa Rinpoche were the Tibetan monks who basically brought Tibetan Buddhism to the West. They were very instrumental in setting up the Atisha Centre in Bendigo. And I just love this little phrase that Lamiashi said. He said, "Be blissful, enjoy life. Do not let yourself become obsessed with anything. Determined to use the rest of your life for the benefit of other beings as much as possible." Pretty simple, huh?
Pretty simple. You say it again? I think it needs taking in.
Okay. Be blissful. Enjoy life. Do not become obsessed about anything. Determined to use the rest of your life for the benefit of other beings as much as possible.
As I said before, I was rudely interrupted by that. It's nearly time to say goodbye. Thank you all for coming so much. Beryl's going to lead us in a short loving kindness meditation. We'd just like to say a big thank you to Peter Thompson for hosting us here.
Yes.
In his generosity.
Yes.
A big thank you to Christine for all her assistance in the process. When we finish, we're going to actually leave via this avenue and
You've got to stay
head
seated.
next door. Next door is the trades hall, which belongs to Peter Thompson as well. And so we're having a little mini wake in there. So there's bickies and cup of tea. If you'd like to join us in there, we're going to actually leave after Beryl does a short loving kindness meditation and then a song. So you do that.
So I might just get everybody to perhaps put their feet on the ground, uncross your legs, put your hands on your lap or somewhere comfortable. Just very gently closing your eyes or just gazing down at a spot in front of you. Maybe just take a few deep breaths. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings rejoice in the well-being of others. And may all beings live in peace. Thank you. And now, to end the show, we're going to have a song by Bob Marley called Three Little Birds, and if you know it, please join along.
Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. Three little birds sit by my doorstep, singing sweet songs of melodies pure and true. Singing, this is my message to you. They were singing, don't worry about a thing, for every little thing's gonna be alright. Singing, don't worry about a thing, oh no, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. Three little birds sit my doorstep, singing sweet songs, melodies pure and true, singing, this is my message to you. They were singing, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Singing, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Last time, singing, don't worry